The galactic survey vessel called the Harmony of Stars was moving through empty space. It was a large ship with bright lights and many rooms. The ship belonged to the Zephyrians, a species that had learned to travel between stars only 400 years ago. They were proud of this skill. They believed they were the smartest explorers in all of space. Commander Teo stood in the scanning room. His skin was blue and glowed like crystals in the light. He was the leader of this mission. His job was to visit planets and understand them. The Harmony of Stars had come to a research station on a planet called Kepler 442b. This planet was far away from Earth, but it was close enough for spaceships to reach it. The research team on Kepler 442b had worked there for 3 years. They were digging in the ground and studying old things. They wanted to learn about the planet's history. Teo was coming to pick them up and take them home. He brought the ship to the station and waited for the team to bring their research materials to the ship. Dr. Hai-Ri was the leader of the research team. She was a Zephyrian like Teo, but she was very different from him. While Teo liked to follow rules and orders, Hai-Ri was curious about everything. She loved finding new things and understanding mysteries. She ran into the scanning room very quickly. She was holding something that glowed with a soft blue light inside a special container. "Commander Teo, you must see this," she said loudly. She was excited and a little worried at the same time. Teo looked at the object. It was made of stone and had marks on it. The marks looked like they were made by something very hot or very sharp. He had never seen a stone like this before. "What is it?" he asked. "We found it in the deep part of the excavation site," Hai-Ri explained. "It was buried very deep in the ground. The deep scanning machines told us it is very, very old, 47,000 years old, maybe even older than that." Teo's glowing skin changed color. It became less bright. This meant he was confused or worried. 47,000 years was extremely old. The Zephyrians had only been traveling in space for 400 years. This stone was ancient beyond anything they knew. "Let me scan it properly," Teo said. He took the stone carefully and put it inside the large scanning machine. The machine made soft humming sounds. It sent invisible light through the stone and read what came back. Numbers and pictures appeared on the screen in front of them. Both Teo and Hai-Ri watched the machine work. The machine showed that the stone had been damaged. The damage was not from natural forces like wind or water. The damage was from combat. The marks showed blade cuts. There were holes from impacts. There were burn marks that matched advanced weapons. Teo's skin became even darker. He was very surprised now. His mouth opened, but no words came out at first. "This is impossible," he finally said. His voice was very quiet. "We have studied this planet completely. Our surveys show that this world has only primitive life. The native creatures never developed tools or weapons. How can this stone exist here?" Hai-Ri did not answer right away. She was also confused. She looked at the scanning results again and again. The results did not change. The stone was real. The damage was real. The age was real. While they were thinking, a man walked into the scanning room. His name was Jiho. He was not Zephyrian. He was human, from the planet Earth. Humans were much younger than Zephyrians in the world of space travel. They had only recently started to explore other planets. Jiho was part of a rescue mission from Earth Station 7. His ship had broken down while traveling through space. The ship could not work properly anymore. The engines were damaged and could not fix themselves. So the ship came down near the research station on Kepler 442b. Jiho and his team had been living with the Zephyrian research team for the last 6 months. They all worked together to study the planet while waiting for help. Jiho was watching the scanning machine. He had been listening to what Teo and Hai-Ri said. He looked at the stone and the scanning results. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not a happy smile. It was more like a sad smile, a smile that meant he knew something they did not know. "Those are from before your species existed," Jiho said simply. His voice was calm and steady. He pointed at the marks on the stone, the marks that showed combat damage. Both Teo and Hyri looked at Jiho. They did not understand what he was saying. How could this human know anything about something so old? The human species was young. They were new to space exploration. "What do you mean?" Hyri asked him. "I mean that this stone shows battle marks," Jiho said. "And we have found many more things like this. Many more. You should come to the excavation site. You should see what else we found in the lower levels. You should see what is buried deep under the ground here." Teo was not sure he trusted this human, but he was also very curious now. The stone was a mystery. The damage was real. The age was real. Maybe this human had information that could help them understand what was happening. "Show us," Teo said. "Take us to this excavation site right now." Jiho nodded and walked toward the door. Teo and Hyri followed him. They left the scanning room and walked toward the exit of the ship. Outside, the ship was the surface of Kepler 442b. The sky was orange and yellow from the setting sun. The ground was rocky and had some vegetation. Nothing looked unusual at first glance. But Jiho knew this place well. He had walked these paths every day for 6 months. He led them to a large hole in the ground. This was where the research team had been digging. The hole was deep and wide. Stairs had been cut into the rock to help people go down safely. "Come," Jiho said. "The real discovery is below. The real answers are waiting in the darkness underground." They began to walk down the stairs. The deeper they went, the cooler it became. The air felt different. It felt like air that had been trapped for a very long time. The walls of the hole showed layers of rock and dirt. Each layer told a story about time. The deeper layers were older, much older. Finally, they reached the bottom, and what they saw made them stop and stare. There were structures here, man-made structures. Buildings made of stone that had been carved from the rock, walls that had been built with purpose and skill. Teo's skin glowed very brightly now, but this time it was not from confusion or worry. It was from shock and wonder. This could not be real. But it was real. It was right in front of him. "Welcome to the Kepler builders," Jiho said quietly. "Welcome to the ruins of a civilization that died thousands of years before your species learned to count." The underground chamber was vast. It stretched far into the darkness. The walls had been carved from solid rock with amazing precision. Nothing was broken or uneven. Everything was planned and measured. The light from Tayo's hand lamp moved across the walls, showing more and more details. Hyri could not believe what she was seeing. She had studied many planets. She had seen many old ruins, but nothing like this. These structures were not primitive. These structures showed advanced knowledge. They showed skill that took years to develop. They showed a civilization that understood engineering and building and design. Jiho walked slowly through the chamber. He knew every part of this place now. He had spent months exploring it carefully. He had mapped everything. He had documented everything. He had become the expert on this dead civilization. "The first chamber leads to many other chambers," Jiho explained as they walked. His voice echoed off the walls. "We have found weapons storage areas. We have found living quarters. We have found research rooms. This was not just a place where people lived. This was a fortress, a place built to survive attack." They came to a large room. The room had mounts on the walls. These mounts were made of metal. They were old and covered with rust, but the shape was clear. These were mounts for weapons, large weapons, weapons much bigger than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. Teo touched one of the mounts. It was cold and hard. He tried to imagine what kind of weapon could fit here. What kind of power would be needed to use such a weapon? His mind could barely picture it. "We call them the Kepler builders," Jiho said. "We do not know what name they gave themselves. That information is lost, but we know they were here. We know they were advanced, and we know they were at war." He pointed to scorch marks on the ceiling. The marks showed that something very hot had exploded here, many times, in many places. The burns were deep. They showed that the heat was intense. "Based on what we have found, we believe they fought a war that lasted for 300 years, Jiho continued. 300 years of fighting, 300 years of conflict with another species, or maybe many other species. We are not sure yet." Hyrie moved to the walls where ancient art had been carved. Pictures told stories. In these pictures, she could see warriors. They wore armor that looked practical and strong. They held weapons that were complex and powerful. Their faces looked determined. They looked afraid. They looked like they knew they might lose. "Who were they fighting?" Hyrie asked. "We do not know exactly," Jiho said, "but we have found records, ancient records written in their language. We have been working to translate it. Some of it makes sense now. The enemy came from outside their world. The enemy was very strong. The enemy wanted to control this planet. The builders did not want to surrender, so they fought." Teo's mind was working very hard. He was thinking about what this meant. His people had always believed that the Zephyrians were the most advanced species alive. His people had always believed that they were discovering new worlds that had no intelligent life. But what if there had been intelligent life before? What if there were civilizations that came before the Zephyrians? What if they were not the first? The thought was uncomfortable. It made his skin change color again. Jiho led them deeper into the fortress. The passages became narrower. The carvings on the walls became more detailed. Some rooms still had furniture in them. Chairs and tables made of stone, storage containers made of metal. Everything was covered with dust from thousands of years. In one room, they found a mural. It was a huge picture carved into the entire wall. It showed a planet. A beautiful planet with blue water and green land. It showed cities with tall buildings. It showed ships flying above the planet. It showed a civilization at peace, a civilization at its best. Below this happy picture, there was another picture. This one showed the same planet. But now there was fire falling from the sky. Buildings were broken. Smoke filled the air. The peaceful civilization was gone. "The bombardment," Jiho said softly. "They bombarded the planet from space. The builders tried to fight back. They had weapons and defenses, but the enemy was too strong, too many ships, too much power." Hyrie looked at the pictures and felt sad. She felt sad for a species she had never known. A species that had been destroyed long before her own people learned to build machines that could fly. They came to another chamber. This chamber had tablets made of stone. The tablets were covered with writing. The writing was small and careful. Someone had spent many hours carving this information into stone. Someone wanted to make sure this information would last forever. Jiho had made copies of these tablets. He had brought them to the scanning machines. The scanning machines had helped translate the ancient language. What they said was important. "These are records," Jiho explained. "Records of the war, records of battles, records of death and loss, but also records of hope. The builders believed they could win. Even when they were losing, they believed they could survive. They believed they could escape." Teo moved closer to examine the tablets. The equations on the tablets caught his attention. Mathematical symbols, scientific formulas. These were not random marks. These were intentional. These were created by someone who understood science. "These are physics equations," Hyrie said with surprise. "I recognize some of them. They are like the equations we use for hyperspace travel." Jiho nodded. Yes. The builders understood hyperspace. They understood how to fold space and move faster than light. They were studying it. They were trying to improve it. They wanted to escape their world. They wanted to leave and find safety somewhere else. The chamber became very quiet. Nobody spoke for a long time. The only sounds were their feet on the stone floor and their breathing. Teo, finally said, "They did escape, did they not? They left this planet. They sealed this chamber and they left." "We believe so," Jiho said. "We have found evidence of large ships. We have found areas where ships took off from the planet. The ground shows burn marks from engines. The burn marks show that many ships left, all at the same time. We think the surviving builders got on ships and flew away." "To where?" Hyrie asked. "We do not know," Jiho said. "The records we have found are incomplete. The final messages are damaged. We can only guess that they flew to other star systems. We can only hope that they survived. We can only wonder if their descendants are still alive somewhere in the galaxy." Teo looked around the chamber. He looked at the weapons mounts. He looked at the burn marks. He looked at the records carved in stone. He looked at the mural showing a civilization destroyed. "And nobody knew about this?" he asked. "No Xipharian explorer ever found this before?" "We did not look deep enough," Jiho said simply. "The entrance is hidden. The digging site looks like normal archaeology. Your people came here and studied the surface. They found nothing unusual. They left. Only when my team came and dug deeper did we find the fortress. Only when we dug deeper did we find the truth." Commander Teo felt something changing inside him. His certainty was shaking. His belief that his people were the first and the greatest was breaking. The truth was more complicated. The truth was more interesting. The truth was humbling. The deepest chamber was different from all the others. The walls here were smooth and shiny. They were not rough stone anymore. They were made of materials that reflected light, materials that looked like they were manufactured, materials that looked advanced even after thousands of years. Jiho stopped at a large metal door. The door was sealed shut. It had markings on it, symbols and pictures. The pictures showed warnings. The symbols showed equations. Someone had designed this door to keep people out, or to keep something in. "This is the archive," Jiho said. "We found this 3 months ago. It took us a very long time to understand how to open it. The builders did not want just anyone to open it. They wanted to make sure that only intelligent beings could open it. Only beings who understood science and mathematics could open it." Hyrie looked at the symbols carefully. Some of them were mathematical. Some of them were chemical. Some of them showed astronomical information. It was a lock that required knowledge to open. "How did you open it?" Teo asked. "Trial and error," Jiho said. "We tried many combinations. We tried different sequences of symbols. We tried to think like the builders thought. Finally, after many months, the door responded. It recognized our input as correct. It opened." Jiho touched certain symbols on the door in a specific order. The door began to glow. A soft humming sound came from inside. The metal seams of the door started to move. Slowly, very slowly, the door slid open. Fresh air came out, air that had been sealed away for thousands of years. They walked inside. The archive was enormous. It was bigger than any building the Xipharians had on their home world. The walls were covered with storage devices. Crystalline structures that held information. Ancient technology that was still functioning, still working, still preserving knowledge. The light activated automatically when they entered. The entire chamber became bright. They could see everything clearly now. The archive was organized perfectly. Information was arranged by subject. Some sections held scientific data, some sections held cultural information, some sections held historical records. Everything was carefully preserved. In the center of the chamber was a large platform. A screen was built into the platform. The screen was dark and inactive. But as they stepped on the platform, the screen began to light up. Symbols appeared. A message appeared. "Welcome," the screen said in a language that sounded strange but that their translation devices could understand. "Welcome to the archive of the Kepler builders. This is our final gift to the future. This is our knowledge. This is our history. This is our hope that someone someday will understand who we were." Then the chamber itself became alive. Holographic projectors activated. Images filled the air. Images of cities, images of spaceships, images of a civilization at its greatest moment. The cities were beautiful, tall buildings made of materials that seemed to glow, roads that flowed with vehicles, plants and trees that filled every space. The cities were not just places where people worked. They were places where people lived beautiful lives, lives full of art and music and joy. The spaceships were magnificent. They were large and powerful. They had designs that looked elegant but also strong. They moved through space with grace. They had the ability to jump between stars. They could fold space itself to travel vast distances. Hey-Ree watched the holographic display with amazement. She had studied history. She had visited ancient sites, but she had never seen anything so advanced. She had never imagined that a civilization could be this powerful. "This is their height," Jiho said. "This is who they were before the war. This is what they had built before the enemy came. This is what they lost." The images changed. Now they showed fleets of ships, alien ships that looked very different from the Kepler builder ships. These ships looked aggressive. They looked like weapons. They came toward the Kepler builder worlds like a storm, like a force of nature that could not be stopped. The Kepler builders fought. Their ships engaged the enemy in space battles. The battles were intense and violent. Ships exploded. Light filled space as weapons fired. The Kepler builders killed many enemy ships. But there were always more. The enemy kept coming. The enemy was stronger. One by one, the Kepler builder worlds fell. Planets were bombarded. Cities were destroyed. Populations were killed. The beautiful civilization was burning. The hope was fading. But the builders did not give up. They made a final decision. They would save what they could. They would take what remained of their people and escape. They would leave behind this archive. They would leave behind their knowledge. They would leave behind a record of who they were. The final images showed a planet being sealed. This planet, Kepler 442b. The builders did something to protect it. They changed the technology. They hid it. They made sure that any remaining intelligent life on this planet would be protected. The planet would be a refuge for their knowledge. Then the images showed the final ships taking off. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of people. They rose up from the surface and flew away. They flew toward the stars. They flew toward an unknown future. They left behind them the archive. They left behind their hope. The holographic display ended. The chamber became dark again. But the information was still there. The knowledge was still stored. The history was still preserved. Teo stood very still. His mind was processing everything he had seen. His understanding of the galaxy had changed completely. There was so much history that he did not know about. There was so much that had happened before his people were even born. "How long has the archive been here?" Teo asked. "Based on the oldest dates in the records, the builders sealed this archive 47,000 years ago," Jiho said. "That is the same age as the stone fragment you found, the combat scars, the damage from weapons. All of it is from 47,000 years ago. All of it is a message from a civilization that once stood where we stand now." Hey-Ree moved to one of the storage devices. She wanted to examine the technology. She wanted to understand how it worked. The device was smooth and perfect. It had no visible buttons or controls. It responded to touch. It responded to thought. It was more advanced than any technology the Xipharians had created. "We need to study this carefully," Hey-Ree said. "We need to understand everything the builders left behind. This could change everything we know about science and technology." Jiho nodded. "That is what we have been doing. Every day we come down here and learn something new. Every day we find something that amazes us. But there is so much here, so much information. It will take years to understand it all. It will take years to translate it all. Teo looked at Jiho. He looked at the archive. He looked at the images that were still visible faintly on the walls around them. "The humans found this," Teo said quietly. "Your team found this, not my people, not the Zyfarians. It was humans who made this discovery, humans who understood what it meant, humans who preserved this information." Jiho said nothing, but something in his expression showed that he was proud. He was proud of his species. He was proud of what humans had done. He was proud that humans had been the ones to find the truth. "I need to report this to the Zyfarian command," Teo said. "This discovery is too important, too significant, it changes everything, and I need to tell them that it was humans who made this discovery, that humans deserve credit for this, that humans deserve to be part of understanding this." Jiho smiled, a real smile this time, a smile of hope, a smile of joy. "Then let us go back to the ship," Jiho said, "and let us tell the world what the Kepler builders have left us. Let us tell them that the past is speaking to us. Let us tell them that the ancients have left us a message of hope." 2 weeks had passed. The message from Commander Teo had traveled across space to the Zyfarian Command Center. The response had come quickly. The Zyfarians were shocked. They were amazed. They wanted more information. They wanted to send their best scientists to study the archive. But there was a problem. Only Jiho and his team truly understood the Kepler builder technology. Only the humans had spent enough time studying the site to really know how it worked. The Zyfarians needed the humans, and the humans needed the Zyfarians. They needed to work together. Dr. Hayree and Jiho had been working side by side in the archive every day. They studied the crystals that held information. They worked to translate the languages. They examined the technology. They built bridges of understanding between two different species. At first, Hayree had been skeptical of the humans' work. Humans were new to space exploration. Humans had simple technology compared to the Zyfarians. How could humans possibly understand something so advanced? But as she worked with Jiho, she realized something. Humans thought differently. Humans were creative in ways that Zyfarians were not. Humans could see patterns that the Zyfarian mind would miss. "Here," Jiho said one morning. He was pointing at a set of symbols on an ancient tablet. "This symbol appears in many places. In the science sections, in the history sections, in the cultural sections. But the meaning is different depending on context. Our translation device kept treating it as one thing. But it is not one thing. It is many things. It depends on what comes before it and what comes after it." Hayree looked at what Jiho was showing her. He was right. The translation had been wrong. The meaning was more complex. The builders were more sophisticated than they had thought. "How did you see that?" Hayree asked. "Because human languages work that way," Jiho explained. "Languages on Earth evolved to be flexible. Words can mean different things depending on how they are used. So I am used to thinking about language that way. I am used to context determining meaning." Hayree adjusted the translation device. She input the new information about context and meaning. The entire archive's translation suddenly became clearer. Information that had been confusing before now made sense. The builders' words became clearer. Their thoughts became clearer. Over the following weeks, Jiho and Hayree made discoveries that shocked them both. They found records of the Kepler builders' science. The builders had discovered things that the Zyfarians were only beginning to learn. The builders understood physics at a level that was beyond current Zyfarian knowledge. They found cultural records, records of art and music and literature. The builders had created beauty. They had created meaning. They had created things that made life worth living. But Jiho found something else, something that he kept hidden for several days before telling Hayree. He found medical records, genetic records, records that showed something remarkable. The builders attempted something, Jiho said carefully. They were not just studying this planet. They were preparing it. They were making it ready for future inhabitants. They stored genetic material here, plant seeds, animal DNA. They created what we would call a seed bank. Hi-Ri was confused. Why would they do that? Because they planned to come back, Jiho said. Or they hoped that someday intelligent life would find this planet and survive here. They wanted to make sure the planet had everything it needed. They wanted to preserve life, not just their own lives, all life. He continued, and there is something else. They modified the local animals. They added genetic markers to them, markers that would help future visitors understand what had happened here. It is like they left a message written in DNA itself. Hi-Ri's mind raced. This changed everything again. The builders were not just trying to survive the war. They were thinking about the future. They were thinking about what would come after them. They were hopeful. They believed that someone, someday, would find this place. They believed that someone would care about what they had left behind. This is remarkable, Hi-Ri said. This shows planning. This shows hope. This shows that they cared about the future even though they did not know what that future would be. Jiho nodded. Yes, and I think I know why they did this. I found personal records, letters written by the builders, messages to the future. They knew they might lose. They knew they might not survive the war, but they wanted to leave something. They wanted to leave a gift to whatever civilization might come after them. He brought up the personal records on the translation device. Some of the letters were damaged. Some of the language was unclear. But the emotion was clear. The hope was clear. The love was clear. One letter was from a woman named Yeon Jai. She held a position of authority. She had made important decisions about the evacuation. She wrote about her fear that the builders would not survive, her fear that her people would be forgotten. But she also wrote about her hope that if they could not survive, at least their knowledge would survive, at least their memory would survive. We have lost so much, Yeonjae had written. We have lost our greatest cities. We have lost our greatest minds. We have lost so many of our people, but we have not lost everything. We still have knowledge. We still have hope. We still have the ability to dream of a better future. Even if we cannot reach that future ourselves, maybe someone else can. Maybe someone will find what we have left. Maybe someone will understand what we were trying to do. Hi-Ri read these words and felt something inside her change. She felt compassion for a species she had never met, a species that had been dead for 47,000 years, but their words were still alive. Their hopes were still alive. Their memory was still alive. Your team should get credit for this, Hi-Ri said to Jiho. Your people found this. Your people understood it. This is a human achievement. Jiho shook his head. No, this is not just human achievement. This is shared achievement. We found the site, yes, but we could not understand it without Xipharian technology. We could not translate it without Xipharian knowledge. We could not preserve it without Xipharian help. This discovery belongs to both of us now. It belongs to both our species. Hi-Ri felt respect for this human. She had learned that respect was important. She had learned that Xipharians were not the only intelligent beings in the galaxy. She had learned that other species had valuable knowledge. Other species had valuable perspectives. I need to send a message to Commander Tae-O, Hi-Ri said. I need to tell him something important, something that will change how the Xipharians see other species. She sent the message. She explained the collaboration. She explained how the human and Xipharian minds worked together to understand the builders. She explained that neither species could have done this alone. Days later, the response came. Commander Tae-O had a message for them. The message was short, but powerful. It said, "You have done something remarkable. You have not just discovered an ancient civilization. You have shown that different species can work together. You have shown that cooperation is possible. Continue your work. The galaxy needs to see what you have achieved." Jiho and Hairi looked at each other. They both understood something important. They had started something bigger than themselves. They had started something that could change the way different species saw each other. They had started a bridge between worlds. In the archive, deep beneath the surface of Kepler 442b, two beings from different species continued their work. They worked together, they learned together, they honored the memory of the Kepler builders together, and in doing so, they created something new. They created hope for a future where all intelligent species could work as one. 6 months had passed since Commander Teo first learned about the archive. The message had spread across the galaxy. All the spacefaring species had heard about the discovery. Scientists from dozens of different worlds wanted to come to Kepler 442b. Everyone wanted to study the Kepler builders. Everyone wanted to understand this ancient civilization. But there were problems. Some species did not trust each other. Some species wanted to control the archive. Some species wanted to claim the builders' technology for themselves. The discovery that was supposed to unite everyone was starting to divide them. It was Jiho who proposed the solution. He had been thinking about it for weeks. He had talked to Hairi about it. She had agreed that it was a good idea. Together, they had gone to Commander Teo with their proposal. "We should create a coalition," Jiho said. They were sitting in the archive, surrounded by the knowledge of an ancient people. "A group of all the species who want to study the builders, together, sharing information, sharing knowledge. No species owns the archive. All species own it together." Teo had listened carefully. He had thought about it for several days. Then he had presented the idea to the Zephyrian command. The Zephyrians agreed. It was an unusual idea. It was not how space exploration usually worked, but it was a good idea. The call went out across the galaxy, an invitation to all spacefaring species. Come to Kepler 442b. Work together, study the archive together, share in the discovery together. The response was remarkable. 12 different species accepted the invitation. 12 different species sent their best scientists. 12 different species agreed to work together. On the day of the first official gathering, the research station on Kepler 442b was full of activity. Ships landed one after another. Scientists from different worlds stepped out onto the same ground. They came in different forms. Some had 2 legs, some had 4 legs, some had tentacles, some had wings, some had shapes that were hard to describe, but they all came for the same reason. They all wanted to understand. The great hall of the research station was prepared for the meeting. It was a large room with many seats. The seats were designed for different body types. Some were high, some were low, some had special support for species that needed it. Everything had been prepared to make all the different visitors comfortable. Commander Teo stood at the front of the room. He looked out at the assembled scientists. It was an amazing sight. A gathering of species that normally did not interact. Species that sometimes competed with each other. Species that had different values and different goals. But they were here together. "Welcome to Kepler 442b, Teo said. His voice was formal but also warm. "We have invited you here because we have made a discovery that belongs to all of us, a discovery that will change how we understand the galaxy, a discovery that shows us we are not alone in the history of space. There were others before us, others who were great, others who were wise. We are here to learn from them." Then Jiho stepped forward. It was unusual for a human to speak at such an important gathering. But everyone knew what Jiho had done. Everyone knew that he was the one who had first understood the archive. "The builders left this archive for us," Jiho said. His voice was calm and clear. "They did not know what species would find it. They did not know what forms we would take, but they hoped that someone would find it. They hoped that someone would care about their memory. They hoped that someone would learn from their history. He pointed to a display. Images appeared. The images showed the combat scars, the ancient marks from weapons, the burns from the war. These scars show us a story, Jiho continued. A story of a civilization that fought hard. A story of a civilization that was strong. A story of a civilization that refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. But it is also a story of sacrifice. They sacrificed everything to save knowledge. They sacrificed everything to save hope for the future. Jiho pointed to another image. This one showed the archive. The chamber deep under the ground, the crystals that held information. This is what they left us, Jiho said. Not weapons, not power, not technology to dominate others. They left us knowledge. They left us history. They left us an example of cooperation, because in this archive, we will see that they worked together. Different teams, different departments, all working toward one goal: the survival of their civilization, the preservation of their knowledge. The scientists watched and listened. Many of them had come expecting to compete. Many of them had come expecting to fight over what they would find. But as Jiho spoke, something changed. They began to see the possibility of cooperation. They began to see the possibility of working together. Then came the moment that everyone had been waiting for. The archive opened for all of them. The deep chamber was revealed. The scientists walked down the stone stairs together. Different species, different forms, different knowledge, but all equal, all respected. When they entered the archive, the holographic displays activated. The history of the Kepler builders filled the chamber. The beauty of their civilization, the horror of their war, the hope of their escape, the gift they left behind. Some of the scientists cried. Some of them had emotions like sadness that showed in their expressions. Some of them had emotions that showed in other ways. But all of them felt something. All of them understood the importance of what they were witnessing. A scientist from the Vorian species spoke up. The Vorians were known for being practical and logical. They were not known for emotion. But even this scientist seemed moved. "This changes everything," the Vorian said. "We are not the first. We are not the greatest. We are simply the next. We have a responsibility to learn from what came before." Director Misun of Earth spoke next. She was a diplomat and a scientist. She had come to represent humanity. "The humans are honored to be part of this discovery," Misun said. "We are a young species. We are new to space exploration. But we understand what the builders are trying to tell us. They are telling us that knowledge is important. They are telling us that cooperation is important. They are telling us that the future belongs to those who can work together." She looked around the chamber at all the different species gathered together. "I propose that we form an organization," Misun continued. "An organization that belongs to all of us. We will study the archive together. We will preserve the builders' knowledge together. We will share what we learn with all spacefaring species. We will make sure that the builders' memory is honored. We will make sure that their sacrifice was not in vain." Commander Teo nodded. "The Zephyrians support this proposal. We are willing to share our knowledge. We are willing to work with other species as equals. We are willing to learn from each other." One by one, the other species agreed. A coalition was formed. Right there in the archive, under the light of crystalline storage devices that glowed with ancient knowledge, 12 spacefaring species agreed to work together. Jiho and Hairi stood together and watched this happen. They had started something important. They had shown that cooperation was possible. They had shown that different species could respect each other. "The builders would be proud," Hairi said to Jiho. Yes, Jiho agreed. They would be proud. They would see that their hope was not in vain. They would see that the future is better because they left behind their knowledge and their example. As the scientists worked together in the archive, examining and learning, something beautiful was happening. The future was changing. A galaxy that had been divided was starting to become united. A galaxy where species competed was starting to become a place where species cooperated. All because one human explorer and one Zephyrian scientist had been willing to look past their differences. All because they had been willing to work together. All because they had respected the ancient people who had come before them.